All right, I'm going to run you through how to use this tool I've created for calculating speaker coverage. You need to find out two pieces of information regarding your speaker. The first is what is the continuous dB rating of your speaker, and the second is what is the horizontal coverage. And based on those two numbers, we can find our closest position from the speaker. So let's say we're going to use the QSE K12.2, which is rated at 126 dB with a horizontal coverage of 75 degrees. And based on these numbers, we can tell what we can set the closest point to. First of all, let's take a look at the diagram on the right. This is our speaker, and these are our numbers. So we are trying to find this. We're trying to find C. What is the closest point? What is the furthest the closest point can be? It's a little confusing, but please bear with me. That is our goal, and the furthest point is this point right here, which is labeled F. WC is the width at the closest point, so this number. And WF is the width at the furthest point, which is this number. And D is the depth, so basically from C to F. That is our depth. So this area right here is our speaker coverage. And we can have our audience however we want inside this area. So we can have the dance floor like a rectangle right here, where we can have it diagonally like that. But if it goes outside our speaker coverage, then we would need two speakers to cover that area. All right, so what number can we set this the closest point to? Let's take a look at the bottom right here. I have color-coded red to be dance floor music level, green to be speech level, and yellow to be background music. So if your event is not going to have any dance music and you just want speeches and background music, then you can just aim for green. Or if you don't even need speeches, you are only looking for background music, then you can aim for yellow. And if you need a dance floor, you have to aim for red. And the number we are taking is the third from the bottom within the color category, because sometimes we can get 4. For example, if we enter 117, we get 4 reds. So we want to take the third number from the bottom, which would be this one, and that is our furthest point. The closest point can be set to. So let me stop back real quick. As an example, let's take, let's say we're only going to use the speaker for speeches and background music. So we're going to aim for green, and the third from the bottom is 64 meters. So any number smaller than 64, we can use as our closest point, which means we can place the speaker 64 meters away from the closest person, or we can put it 1 meter from the closest person. But that will drastically change our speaker coverage area, which we will see right now. So let's start with 64 meters. If we enter 64, we can look at depth. We have a depth of 192 meters. That is a huge coverage. But 64 meters away is pretty far away, and 99.99% of the time, we're not going to get the speaker that far away. So let's enter a more realistic number. Let's say 7 meters. Okay, and now our depth is changed to 21 meters. That is a huge difference. So the closer we have the speaker to the closest audience, the less coverage we have. So the more coverage we want, the further away we want the speaker, but we also don't want the speaker to get too quiet. And we also don't want the volume difference to be too big between the closest and the furthest person. That is why we need this calculator. So let's say we're placing the speaker right against the first audience, which is at 1 meter away. Now we only have a depth of 3 meters. That is a very tiny audience size. So this is why you do not want your speaker super close. You want to put your speaker as far as you can without the volume dropping too low. And based on this calculator, we know for dance floor music, we can place the speaker 8 meters away. Or for speeches, we can place it 64 meters away. Okay, so let's check out a different speaker. For example, the EXM Mobile 8, which is rated at 117 dB and 90 degrees horizontal coverage. And let's say we're going to use it for dance floor music, which is the red. And we can take the third number from the bottom, which is 4 meters right here. And that is the furthest away we can have the speaker from the closest audience. Okay, so what if we can't get the speaker far enough? Well, then we're going to have to decrease this number. So if we drop this to 2 meters, our speaker coverage now only has a depth of 6 meters, which is very tiny. So if you are inside a tiny room, you might need to use 2 speakers as well, because you don't want the closest person going deaf while the furthest person can barely hear anything. You don't want that. So we have to stay within this range. Okay, if we have a tiny room, we want more speakers, but quieter. If we have a huge room, then maybe we can get away with only 1 speaker. Okay, and if you would like the numbers in feet, there's a second tab at the bottom. By the way, the link is in the description. You can make a copy and enter the 3 blue numbers yourself. So all the numbers on this page are in feet. It's on the second tab. All right. I hope this has helped you. If you want to know how to actually set up a speaker and microphone, you can click on the link below to watch our video on that. And I hope you will have a very successful event or wedding or whatever you are doing, and have a nice day.